Mr. President, in 3.5 days, the Department of Homeland Security may well shut down. I speak as the senior Democrat on the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and for the last 2 years, along with Dr. Tom Carper, our former colleague from Oklahoma, chaired the committee, and that he and I led. But in 3.5 days, if Congress fails to act responsibly, just 78 hours, I think, from right now, the Department of Homeland Security may shut down. I've spoken on the floor a number of times in recent weeks about the complex, consistent, and very real threats that our country faces. We're familiar with a lot of them, maybe not all. But over the past several months, we've seen horrific images of beheadings, of mass murders, brutal executions at the hands of the Islamic State. Some of our nation's largest companies and federal agencies have been victims of massive cyber attacks. They continue to this day. This weekend, another terrorist group, the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group in Somalia called Al-Shabaab, vowed that they would seek revenge against the United States, and they cited the Mall of America in Minnesota as a potential target. And it's not just these groups or the lone wolf terrorists they inspire that we need to worry about. Last fall, Ebola ravaged several nations in Western Africa and even came to our shores as well. Threats from Mother Nature persist too. Communities and cities in some parts of our country are trying to get through a winter that's already broken snowfall records, and more records are likely to fall. Yet today here in the United States Congress, there are some who are questioning whether to even fund the very agency charged with keeping us safe from these and other evolving threats. That goes beyond being irresponsible. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson nailed it recently when he said what it was. And here's what he said. He said, "It's bizarre and absurd that we're even having this discussion." I could not agree more. Is this really the message we want to be sending to all those folks across the world who wish us harm? God, I hope not. But here we are, just days before this key agency could be forced to shut down, preparing for the worst. And some of our colleagues have said that it isn't a big deal if the department shuts down. I could not disagree more strongly, and here's why. If we continue this behavior and fail to pass a clean Department of Homeland Security funding bill by midnight on Friday, this is what will happen at the Department of Homeland Security. Much of the department's workforce, up to 200,000 people, will be expected to show up for work, but work without pay. That includes Border Patrol agents who protect our borders. That includes Coast Guard crews who patrol our waters. That includes TSA employees who keep our skies safe and make it safe to fly on our airplanes and in and out of work, in and out of our airports. Many of these courageous men and women put their lives in harm's way every day. We expect them to continue doing that. We just aren't going to pay them. That's right. We want you to keep doing your job of protecting our nation. Eventually, those in Congress will get around to doing our job. And when we do, you'll get paid. Let me just ask all of us, how would we like to be treated that way? How would we like to be treated that way? Well, we wouldn't. And I think it's shameful that we'd even contemplate treating some of our bravest federal employees like that. Shameful. Even worse, treating our people like this doesn't make America any safer. In fact, it makes us less safe in the end. Even if we did avoid a shutdown but keep the department running on a stopgap continuing resolution, we prevent the men and women who work there from doing their jobs as efficiently and as effectively as they could be, should be, and would like to be. As Secretary Johnson described it, putting the department on another continuing resolution here's his words, but is a little like trying to drive cross-country with no more than 5 gallons of gas in the tank at a time, and you don't know when the next gas station is. You can't plan. You can't plan except days and weeks at a time. For example, if we pass another stopgap continuing resolution, the department won't be able to replace obsolete surveillance technology along high-risk areas of our border. We need to replace it. In addition, our nation will have significantly fewer resources to respond to any future surges of unaccompanied minors along our southwest border. Moreover, we will put construction of a badly needed national security cutter for the Coast Guard on hold. And why does that matter? It matters because our Coast Guard fleet is aging and it needs to be modernized. These ships are essential to stopping illegal trafficking off our coast, like drug trafficking and human trafficking and illegal immigration. Some have been in vessels that travel at speeds of greater than 50 knots. If that's not enough, try this. It's widely known that employee morale at the Department of Homeland Security is the lowest of all major federal agencies. Passing yet another continuing resolution, I promise you, won't make it any better. Quite the opposite. Morale will only get worse, and in doing so, threaten to degrade the performance of the people we rely on, perhaps more than any other, to keep Americans safe. So let me say it again. This is not the way we should be treating the public servants who in many cases risk their lives to keep our nation and all Americans safe. And it's no way to run a key national agency. Furthermore, as we've learned over the years, this kind of crisis budgeting costs taxpayers millions of dollars in lost productivity, in hiring freezes, in contracts that will have to be renegotiated, not at a lower cost to taxpayers, at higher costs. Now, I understand why some of our colleagues are concerned about the policies and procedures set forth in the President's executive action on immigration. I get it. They have every right to express those concerns. But the Department of Homeland Security's budget is not the place to have that debate. The federal district court in South Texas recently examined what the President has put forward and blocked its implementation. Why can't we just let the judicial process play out and meanwhile do our job by funding the Department of Homeland Security for the balance of this fiscal year? Some of our Republican colleagues agree with this approach. One of our colleagues, Lindsey Graham, said earlier this week, and I quote him, "I hope Republicans will come together and back the court case, file a friend of the court brief for the court, and fund the Department of Homeland Security." He added, "I'm willing and ready to pass a DHS funding bill and let this play out in court. The worst possible outcome for this nation is to defund the Department of Homeland Security, given the multiple threats we face to our homeland." Our friend, Lindsey's friend, Don McCain, also said recently, and this is his words, not mine, "It's not a good idea to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. Now we have the perfect reason to not shut it down because the courts have decided, at least initially, in our favor being that of the Republican governors who filed the lawsuit at South Texas District Court." Mr. President, I want to urge my Republican colleagues to go ahead and pursue this potential judicial remedy to address the concerns that they have. But while they're doing that, for God's sake, let's bring a clean fiscal year 2015 appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security. The same bill that both Democrats and Republicans agreed to last December. Let's bring it to the floor so we can give the department the funding and the certainty that it desperately needs. Regardless of what happens in the courts, Mr. President, at the end of the day, comprehensive immigration reform is the only way we can fix our broken immigration system for the long term. It's the only way we can address the issues the President was trying to resolve in his executive action in a straightforward way, as we did in the last Congress when we passed by a big bipartisan vote right here on this floor, 2-to-1 margin, comprehensive immigration reform. We owe the American people an honest and thorough debate on immigration reform, but let's do it the right way. And we've shown that we can do that. We did it a year and a half ago. Let's do it again. And let's do it this year after approving a clean, full-year funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security. I might just add, the comprehensive immigration reform that we passed here by a 2-to-1 margin a year and a half ago, it was priced out by the Congressional Budget Office, which is not Democrat or Republican. And they looked at it, did all the numbers and everything, and they concluded that rather than increasing the budget deficit, that comprehensive immigration reform bill reduced the budget deficit for the next 10 years by $200 billion. And further, for the second 10 years, reduced our budget deficit by $700 billion. A different study further suggested that the impact on our nation's economy, on our gross domestic product, by the implementation of that same comprehensive immigration reform would not diminish the growth of our economy. It would actually increase it by 5% GDP growth over a two-decade period of time. Well, Mr. President, those of us who are privileged to serve in the Senate, we're sent here by our constituents with a critical responsibility to work together and pass laws that help our nation and help our economy to grow and thrive. This debate, or any debate for that matter, shouldn't be about one political party winning or losing, because right now the only people who are losing are the constituents we're supposed to serve. And as long as we continue to spend our time debating these manufactured funding crises, our constituents, and including American taxpayers from coast to coast, they're going to continue to lose. And we as a Congress, I think we lose as well. I believe American voters made it clear in last fall's election. They're tired of all this kind of behavior. I don't blame them either. To put it simple, they want us to do our job. They want us to do our job. They want us to work together across these aisles. They want us to get things done that need to get done. They want us to find ways to strengthen the economic recovery. I ask unanimous consent for 2 additional minutes, if I could, please.
Without objection.
Thanks very much. In closing, Mr. President, let me just note that I'm encouraged to hear that Senate Majority Leader McConnell now seems to be moving toward allowing a vote on a clean bill. I hope this change, of course, is the beginning of the end of this crisis for the Department of Homeland Security, and I think for our country. Well, whatever we do, it's critical that we consider and pass a clean Department of Homeland Security funding bill first. And at this point, every hour that goes by without one creates more uncertainty and more waste. After we do that, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get back to work on a thoughtful 21st century immigration reform reform policy for our country. A policy that is fair, a policy that will significantly reduce our nation's budget deficit, and a policy that will strengthen the economic recovery now underway. And I want to thank my friend from Iowa for the kindness in allowing me to proceed for an extra few minutes, and I yield the floor to him.